What's up, guys? It's D22-soso Wayne Chung of the Professional Gamer Podcast. This is my VIP guest, d23-gad Severson. I've known him quite a long time. We don't know when you guys are going to watch this, so let's say the year was about, I don't know, 1997 maybe.
Yeah, that's about right.
And you have a long gaming history. We have probably similar length of gaming history, but you were really quick on the entrepreneurship bandwagon, and I learned so much from you back in the day because I was in my little bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I got sucked into it so early. I mean, I was writing code already in high school. So that's probably a big reason why I got kind of sucked into like what can I build versus what can I play really early on. But yeah, I remember like it was back in like the CGI Perl scripting days, first year in
90s.
college. I was already like building my first couple of websites. I was really big into board games, so I built like an Axis and Allies strategy website, and then I built a chess strategy website my first year in college, and it was cool because like the web was brand new. I mean, it was literally
Oh yeah.
1995, and so it was like when you looked up chess, there wasn't really a search engine then, but if you looked for chess strategy sites, I think mine came up pretty high up there, and it was total garbage. I mean, it was like blinking fonts and the whole thing.
Dude, that's
Um,
sick. Blinking fonts were the nuts back then.
yeah, it was all about blinking fonts. And I never knew, like 10 years later, I'd go on to like make chess like, my living. It was just, I was the chess club president in college. And so it was like, it felt like the thing to do, spend some hours in the engineering lab on their computers. And then
Sick.
got sucked into Warcraft. Warcraft 2 was kind of my first online, real like serious game. Played a ton of NWL, National Warcraft League, a lot on Kali, Kali for people that don't know that one.
Shout out to the other
Um,
Jay who made
yeah,
Cali.
exactly. Yep, Jay Kali. Yep. So Kali was like the original like bulletin board for gamers. It was kind of old school. And then I remember sophomore year at college, they put in a T1 line into my dorm room, and that was the end. That was like the end of my college days.
Sid, did like what juncture did we meet after your T1 line?
Well, we met online. I think we started playing against each other my sophomore year, because that's when like Warcraft 2 got really big, and so you were playing Warcraft 2 leagues, I was playing Warcraft 2 leagues. We
So
were both playing on
actually,
Case's Ladder, right?
your your former, or sorry, your co-owner for Case's Ladder, I met them before I met you.
Yeah. Yep.
So Case, Jeremy Resnick, started the Command and Conquer ladder, and I was number one on that, and I got number one with teams, and that's where I met Case and Bill Wine, aka Bill. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Makatis,
Masitis.
Masitis.
Bill
Okay,
Masitis. Yep.
he went to. Yeah, I mean, I was like a kid, and he was a college student at Urbana-Champaign. Anyway, basically,
Shout out
after,
to Bill though. I mean, Bill.
he's
Bill's gone
killing
on to
it.
do great things, man.
I want
Like,
him on too.
yeah. Slack chief marketing officer. He was Zendesk, I think before or after the IPO. He was definitely early in its Slack. What else? He had one other one that was. Oh, he was at Salesforce for a while. So it's like he hit every like top five success story, like just at the right time. So Case's Ladder was not the success story, but the next three for him were huge. So he did a really good job at picking winners, picking winning horses after Case's Ladder. So it was him, and then the other one was Crispin, Greg.
Shout out to Greg.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you guys knew each other before me because I wasn't in the Command and Conquer scene at all.
And Bill hit number one ranked, and then he matured earlier than me, so he just left the gaming scene and gone on to do the great things that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And then Command and Conquer. I don't know. I guess like there was nothing left for me to do there. So and Case expanded to like Warcraft 2, Team Warcraft 2, and that's where I
You know
think.
why? You know why I
Like,
could never play Command and Conquer though, right?
no.
Oh, come on, man. The reason why I can't play Command and Conquer is it's all left click. How do you play any real time?
Oh.
How do you play any real time strategy game? Think about playing StarCraft all left click. Can you imagine how like aggravating that would be? How terrible that would be? Like literally, you grab all your units with your left click, then you go to move them somewhere else on the map, and you accidentally left click on another unit or building, and it literally unselects all of your units. I think I did that like once or twice, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm never playing this game ever again. It was the most aggravating thing that Westwood ever came out with. I hated it. And they didn't even fix it in Red Alert either. Like they kept that same left click system for everything. And then Blizzard comes along and is like, hey guys, we have 2 buttons on the mouse. Let's try to use the other one. And it was like the second you could use the right mouse button to actually move your units, it was like a huge breakthrough in real-time strategy games. Like so simple.
Yes, but Command and Conquer had something Warcraft 2 didn't, which was the hotkeys.
True. That's true.
That's why I had such a head start on Starcraft, which is because like I was used to the hotkeys and the left. And to be fair, I think I had to be either 17 years old or 18 years old, probably 17. When you're 17 years old, the UI UX or the control system can be anything, and you just puzzle your way through. When you're old, you're like, dude, I need everything to customize the menu.
Yeah, I think actually because I played Warcraft first. Warcraft 2. Well, I actually played Warcraft 1. I did play Warcraft 1. I'm one of the few who played with like all the axe throwers or whatever.
So.
And then so they already had the right click, I think, in Warcraft 1 even. And so by the time I tried Command and Conquer, I had already gotten used to left click select, right click move, and I tried Command and Conquer and I'm like, what is this? Like, this is impossible. But you're right that like trying to go from StarCraft back to Warcraft 2 without hotkeys is impossible. Like hotkeys were a huge improvement. And then the next big revolution in real-time strategy was replays. That was the next huge breakthrough, because for a long time you could not save your game, you could not watch replays, so there was no way to piggyback off of what the pros were doing. Like everybody was sharing things through like forum posts, and it was very like archaic and how to like learn new strats. So you could be original, you could be novel. And the second replays came out, everybody just started copying what the pros were doing like instantly. Yeah. So that was a huge breakthrough too. But
let's backtrack to Warcraft 2. So basically you NWL and then Case's Ladder, and then kind of your breakthrough.
Well, the way that I got to Case's Ladder actually was my second year. So I had come home from college after my sophomore year. I was living in San Jose, had like an internship. I was doing like data entry, got into IT work, all this stuff. And then I'm sitting at home one day and I'm like, I love playing in these NWL tournaments that we have, but our online system for running leagues was like so archaic. So I looked at Case's Ladder that was really popular for other games, like mostly like classic games, and then it had like its Command and Conquer League. And I'm like, they don't have tournaments either. So I was like, there was nowhere where you could actually organize and play tournaments online for these competitive games. So the very first kind of entrepreneurial idea I had was building an online tournament system, and I called it World Gaming Federation. It was going to be kind of like the official, like sanctioned online tournaments for, you know, competitive gamers. So it was WGF. I launched it, built the whole thing with Perl, and it was pretty cool because it ran in the browser. It had like all this HTML way of drawing the brackets and everything. And then we started running tournaments, and somehow Jeremy kind of stumbled on my system because we were using it to run you know, Warcraft tournaments, and I think even CNC started using it a little bit. And so he approached me and was like, hey, you know, we've got leagues and we've got ladders, but we don't have tournaments. So why don't you come work for us? And I'm like, wait, you're going to pay me to work from home? Like, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's unheard of
so
back then.
That's how I got picked up from Case's Ladder, and I thought I had like made it big, man. I'm like, I'm working for a company, I'm going to college, I'm getting paid to do what I love anyways. So that was kind of like dream time.
Fair, you're like 19 at the time, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
maybe 20. Yeah, it was like my second or third year after high school, so 98. I was probably 21 actually.
You basically did hit it big for that age bracket. Like, it's and
so you have no idea. I was living in like a $500 a month like roach shack with mice, like slanted floors. Like literally, if people drive by the building today and they're like, "You lived in that?" It looks like it literally looks like it's about to fall apart at
That's
any
the
moment.
one that I went to, right?
It's right off the freeway, so semis drive by and it literally shakes my whole house every time. So I lived there for a couple years. Second I got the job from Case's Ladder, I went to like making real money, and I moved to like this pimp pad in downtown San Jose. It was like $1,500 a month.
Your shack, I remember the shack, and there's a lot of history that went on there. But,
well, yeah, so that's with Sea Dog and Calvin. Like that was my roommate. So me and Calvin used to show up to like the tournaments, and I think that's where I first met you in person. Was at the LAN tournaments we were having.
And we had already battled online, and we had like a rivalry. Our team, you know, shout out to C4L and.
Yep.
And then so you played with Sea Dog, I think the first time. I forgot who I played with, but yeah, there's a little rivalry. It was, you know, joking. And then the WGF, I don't know if you remember, you were really high ranked on the Case's Ladder Warcraft 2, and then you said you wouldn't take matches unless they also played on the WGF as well.
I don't remember that, but that sounds like something I would say.
You definitely did, which is pretty funny. And then in the one-on-ones, we did pretty well. I think you did better than me. I don't remember. I think you were always better than me at Warcraft 2. And then the teams, like, T4L was like number 1, number 2.
Yeah. Yep. Just shout out though to the honor system of gamers in the late 90s. Like literally the cases ladder, it was all honor system. Like you lose a match and the loser has to go report their game. Can you imagine gamers today having to go report their losses? Dude, like it would never happen in a million years. Like I lose at Valor, you think I'm gonna go like report my loss and be like, yeah, I'll be honest about this. I lost. Like people just don't do that anymore. So it was cool that we ran like whole leagues and ladders and tournaments based on the honor system. And there was even a big button like report, like whatever it was. Like if you didn't report your match, you could report them to the system. So anyway,
there were people who didn't report, but I think all the competitive people, like 99%, there were some like accusations of like cheating and stuff. I remember like I got accused of cheating. They're like, I played against the best. I've never seen somebody play as fast as you. I'm like, yeah. Like I was number 1 in like Command and Conquer. Like probably I think I hit top 5 in Warcraft 2, and you're saying in Starcraft I'm not fast. It's just really weird.
Well, I remember like people like Tillerman and stuff like that would sit at the top of the ranking system for forever. And well, they would, but I mean, it was hard. It was like you got 25, 30 people just groveling and begging for a match all the time. Like, please play me, and it's like that's the only way you get matches is to beg these guys for matches. Yeah. And they don't want to play. I mean, they're already number 1, so it's kind of like whatever.
Squatting.
And then you find out years later when you go play against them live that it's like, oh my god, you've been map hacking against me this whole time.
Oh,
mother, like. And it's true though. Like they came out and admitted it years later. Tillerman was a map hacker. Maynard was a map hacker. They all admitted it later. Like, oh yeah, I use map hack. So I'm not afraid to say it now, like in the interview. But like there was
you and I are clean. So
I mean, when we showed up to the PGL finals in '98, and I saw honestly how slow they were. Their APMs were not impressive. For some, like I was 0-13, I think, against Maynard lifetime. Like I had never beat this guy. And then I go play against him, Miguel Bombosh, whatever his name is, right?
He's a lawyer now, Nesty.
All right, he's going to sue me. But I'm telling you, I saw how slow Miguel was on that keyboard. I was like, how have I lost this guy 13 times? He is slow. And, all of a sudden I'm crushing him in live matches, and I can't even get close to beating him when we're playing online. I'm like, this guy must be map hacking. It's the only way to explain it. So,
and
anyway.
Yeah, so you had already had Case bought out WGF at this point, or IGL?
Yeah, exactly. So Case's Ladder / IGL, they kind of rebranded at one point. They bought me out. They bought me and Calvin out. Calvin was also involved in the WGF, and so they bought us both out. Calvin was working full time at Intel at the time, CDOG.
Sick.
So his job was actually a lot better than mine, but. I went and worked for IGL, Cases Ladder, for quite a few years and helped them build a bunch of stuff there. At some point, they wanted to consolidate, move people up to Seattle, and I just wasn't. I wasn't ready to move, so that's kind of why I eventually left. They sold out to another group at one point, Slam Site, and that turned into this long, drawn-out legal battle and drama. And eventually, what's funny is Cases Ladder eventually ended up becoming owned by Intermix Media. And Intermix Media was the same company that owned or is part of MySpace. So if I had stayed the course, I would have ended up working at MySpace. Look at that missed opportunity, man. MySpace. So back in the day, it was a big deal. That's like saying I worked at Facebook, but now nobody knows what MySpace is anymore.
Justin Timberlake bought it. But yeah, so Warcraft 2, we were among the top players, but we never really got our shot to compete. And then Starcraft came out, and then shout out to Super Piano. I was going to quit games, and then he actually bought Starcraft from me and mailed it to my place. So we were off on a fresh start, and just like, we did a lot better because we were on equal footing. And then I had actually quit the summer before, and then PGL season 3 came of the competition, and I missed signups because I had kind of quit. And you were the one that encouraged me to compete, and then you go on to make top 8. That was my first gaming commentating gig, and then you go on to win this thing.
Lucky, man. I got lucky. I mean, I was good. I never felt like I was top 8. I definitely didn't feel like I was the best in the world. but I felt like I got a huge confidence boost, like I said. Like once I made it top 8, and I'm thinking, oh man, cool, I get to go this all expenses paid trip somewhere in the world, and they're like, hey, the finals are in San Francisco. And I'm like, what? Like I live right next to San Francisco, so it was not very exciting. Like they're flying in Tillerman from Scotland, and they're like flying in all these people from all over the place, and they're like, well, do you want a limo? We can come pick you up in San Jose, or you could just drive up to, And I was like, I'll just drive, guys. Like I turned down the limo. I was like, this is silly.
Yeah.
Anyway, the finals were in San Francisco, and I got there, and I just looked at how, like, seeing my competitors in real time, and they just weren't that fast. Like, it wasn't intimidating at all for me, and I was like, as long as I keep producing, there's no way I should lose to any of these guys, because I felt like my actions per minute and my speed was just faster. And that's not bragging, it's just the honest truth. Like, I was fast back then. I'm not fast anymore, but it just gave me a confidence boost, and so I just steamrolled all the way through the finals. Like, I don't think I even had any very close games. So.
And it's for reference, you ripped on me for being slow, but I'm slow compared to like you by like a little bit. It's not you when you said that about them, I was like, oh, and then you're like, no, these guys are like way slower than both of us. It's
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was as a good friend of yours, it was just awesome like watching you just like
Well, I was also just like, why is this guy commentating? Why isn't he playing? Like, I didn't know why you were actually involved in playing with it, because you had the skill and the caliber to, to go to the finals and to win it all. And I'm like, he's sitting here commentating. It's like watching Joe Montana in his prime, like commentating on the Super Bowl. It was just kind of weird. It was like, why isn't Wayne playing?
I appreciate I missed the entry. So like the cutoff, because you were the one who told me about it's okay, dude, you won. I have plenty of accolades after.
No, you got it. It's just weird that you waited so long to kind of get into the thick of it, but it was cool. So
yeah, go ahead.
Well, so we won the whole thing. That was kind of cool, and then we had the experience of a lifetime where Logitech approached me and they're like, hey, they're going to give you an endorsement deal. So I got kind of sponsored by Logitech, and they put my face in a stupid quote on the back of a mouse and paid me a bunch of money for it, and I made way more money from that Logitech endorsement deal than I ever did from winning the tournament. So just for the record, I won $8,500 for winning the Starcraft tournament, which at the time when you're that age was like, wow, this is a lot of money. And they gave me a computer, so that was kind of cool.
Sick.
But then my Logitech endorsement deal paid me like 5x that amount. I mean, it's like the sponsorship is just so much better.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, Logitech was like, sure, we'll fly you out too. And just for the record too, I won the championships with a Microsoft mouse, and I loved Microsoft mice. And then Logitech comes along and says, we'll pay you to use a mouse. And I said, I'll sell out tomorrow. Like,
it's the player, it's the player.
If somebody's going to pay me to use a mouse, by all means, I'll use that mouse. And the thing that I was not happy with the Logitech deal at all. I mean, the money was fine, but literally the way that went down was I showed up for a meeting in Fremont at their headquarters, and I walked into like a boardroom, and they showed me the mouse, and they said, what do you think? And I was like, okay, well, I thought we were gonna like build a mouse together. Like, let me tell you what I want in a mouse, and then you guys kind of build around like my wishes. Like maybe the way that like, LeBron or Steph Curry designed a shoe, right? Like they tell Nike what they want, and then Nike builds it for them. This is not how that went. Literally, I walked in, the prototype was already done. They handed it to me. They said, tell us what you think. I put my hand on it. I'm like, first it was a 3-button mouse, which nobody uses 3-button mice at that time for gaming. There was no scroll wheel in the middle, which scroll wheels were already becoming popular, so I thought that was weird.
You still have the box?
This is what they handed me, this right here. They handed me this Wingman gaming mouse, and they said, tell me what you think. Look see, there's 3 buttons. And I put my hand on it.
Read the quote on the back too.
I will. It's terrible. But this is how the quote came about. There's all these like marketers sitting around the table, a couple product guys, and I put my hand on the mouse and I said, well, it kind of feels good in my hand. Feels nice in my hand, and moved it around a little bit. I'm like, oh, it kind of feels smooth, and that was it. Like that was the extent of my input on the product. They literally took that quote, put my face and that quote on the back of the mouse box, and said, Starcraft champion uses our mouse. Here's what he says about it. And the quote literally says, Wingman gaming mouse is the smoothest and most accurate mouse I've ever used. It's much faster and more precise than the mice I played with in the past. I also like the way it feels in my hand. That's the worst quote ever.
Hey man, you got paid.
Jay Severson, aka Gaddy Anton, professional gamer champion, the PGL Starcraft Season 3 night ball. So it was terrible. They literally called me in for like a 20-minute meeting, got me to say a quote about the mouse, and then just stuck it on the back of the mouse box and paid me some money for it. But I would have liked to have used a mouse that I actually like really liked. And this mouse was just like okay. It wasn't even that great of a gaming mouse. Like I just didn't really like it. And it, you know, cells were like okay, and then Logitech said, hey, you know, if you want to go to this StarCraft tournament in Korea, we'll pay your way. So that's when me and you got to go to Korea and had the freaking time of our life. And
That was awesome. Yeah.
that was a freaking amazing trip, like one of the best. So it sucks that we got set up. You know, got set up to go play in a tournament that they knew the maps. We didn't know the maps. They knew exactly where we were. They had practiced on them. We didn't know anything. So I think I lost in like round 1 to like a Zergling rush, and it was like
No,
GG,
you got. I remember you got off cannoned. Like that was just the proof. Like they claimed that nobody. These were original maps. Nobody saw the maps. You know, they claimed nobody saw the maps. But the way they played, it was just like obvious. Like
yeah,
they saw.
They
the
had
maps.
seen the maps. They had
Yeah.
definitely seen the maps. But it's also like a language barrier. You go over there and you're working through an interpreter the whole time, and so you're only getting like half of the information. The information you are getting is probably a little bit off, you know. So it's totally like lost in translation. It just was a tournament that was, you felt out of sorts. You weren't on your own computer. You weren't on your own equipment. You weren't playing maps you knew.
Yeah.
And then you walk into a PC bong in South Korea and literally see the whole place is just filled with young like 10 to 15-year-old kids, boys mostly, playing StarCraft like robotic human beings, like cyborgs. That's when the writing on the wall was for me. Was like, I have no future in this game, like zero. Within a year, all these kids are going to be having like 400 APMs, and I have no chance. So that's kind of like, that tournament is what opened my eyes to the fact that I think I got fortunate. I won while I could. This game is going to be huge, and once the Koreans take over, it's going to be tough to beat them.
To give credit to the tournament, it's the Sports Bowl tournament. Like we don't know how these kids or the competitors, these kids saw the maps, but they did also straight up place us in the top 16, whereas other people had to, you
True.
know. So there were like, you know, good aspects, and top 16 I think guaranteed us money. It's just, you know.
Hey, we had our moment though. Remember, we played foreigners versus, you know, South Koreans in a 4v4.
Yeah.
Dude, we dominated.
Who was
we
our
totally
fourth?
dominated.
It was me, you, Gurr, and who was the fourth?
Maynard, wasn't it?
Maynard wasn't there.
Everlast?
Oh yeah, it was Everlast. Had to be Everlast. By default, it had to be Everlast because I know he
I
was
think
there.
so. Yeah.
We won.
No, we definitely won. We killed them, and we were in a big ballroom. We had a ton of media there, and that felt good to kind of like get a win, because after getting spanked in the 1v1, it was a little bit of redemption.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I mean, we had opportunity, and of course, like if we had kept I did keep my StarCraft career on for a little bit, but it's like, yeah, again, like, do we move to Korea or stay in the U.S.? And
Yep.
You know, you decide to stay in the U.S. I did too. It just life decisions. It's nobody knows. But
No, that was a huge fork in the road. I mean, that I had a time of my life when I was there in South Korea. There's no way in heck I would have stayed, because I was like, even if you become like top 10 in the world and can stay top 10 in the world, for me there was no guarantee that the money was going to be very good.
Right.
Because pro gaming was still so new. It was hard to get sponsorships. There was really like 2 or 3 people in the whole world who had a sponsorship at that time. It was like me and Thresh, and maybe like 1 or 2 South Koreans had a sponsorship.
Right. Gurr ended up getting an AMD one. I mean, yeah. I had a job that was technically like a sponsorship, so it wasn't bad, but like, yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff is like, you know, we had our fun. I stuck around a little bit longer than you. That being said, like those couple of years I was at gamers.com running GX Starcraft, I was like, and this is just like not really documented, I was like at the forefront of Starcraft esports, and it's not really documented that much in history. Like I was at all the tournaments, I was giving the game reports, and we watched it grow, and you were just like, you had other things going on, and you just had to make choices, and honestly you made the right choice.
I like to think so. I mean, if the times were different, if we had fast forwarded 10, 20 years, you know, and the payouts were like they are now, and the industry was as big as it is now, I would have made a total different choice. But for me, it was just a financial decision, a reality check decision. I was also already like 21 years old. which is
We're getting
pretty old.
slower.
It's old to be starting an esports career, you know.
Yeah.
So if I was like 15, I would have done it differently, you know. But I was already on the older tail end, so it was a pretty easy decision for me. But still, you know, South Korea was super fun. I love the food, I love the people, love the culture, love the girls. You know, I mean, they're pretty. I
Me
didn't
more
really
than
talk to a
you.
lot. Yeah, you exactly, exactly.
Anyway.
We don't want to talk about Eugene Kim. That's another hour.
Ouch. Just kidding. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, just like I think it was an awesome fork, and then I don't know, like if we had the standings that we did back then today, I don't know what I would do either. But like I think you probably did the right thing because this was the point of this podcast. A lot of the pro gamers from the '90s, where it's me, you, Gur, Brian Weissman, Thresh, the money's not there for like retirement money, and then yeah, just like it's America. There's a lot of opportunities to just like build
Yeah.
stuff and
Yeah, and it's interesting to see like where most professional gamers ended up. Like I know a lot of people went the pro poker route, which is a good like it's you see your skills as, you know, analytical and kind of ability to analyze situations quickly. And poker is a natural fit, I think, for a lot of real-time strategy gamers. So it's, you know, I
yeah,
think a lot of StarCraft players ended up going poker out because they saw a market where there was good money
yeah,
and there were a lot of sponsorships and they're, you know, like, okay, I can do poker and actually make a pretty good living there. StarCraft, you know, I think some people tried it for a while. Some people did okay. Like Gur's one of the few I think that, you know, actually had a pretty good career early on in StarCraft and kind of became like a, you know, celebrity in South Korea and stuff. But it's few and far between in those early years. So I think I did the right thing. Came back. I dabbled in games for a few more years, but ended up getting my computer science degree and kind of just did normal jobs for a while, and then eventually got a good opportunity to start a company with my college friend of mine, Eric Allabest, and we ran with chess.com. So that kind of then consumed like the next 12 years of my life was just building chess.com. So
and the rest is history. Chess.com is just like so huge, and it's quarantine now. It's September 2020, and like there's been a huge upspike.
huge. I think we've had, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was literally a 3 or 4x growth in just a few months in terms of traffic, in terms of games per day, in terms of signups. Like it was crazy, and I don't like to celebrate that as a success during a time when, you know,
It's a
there's literally a national or sorry, a global pandemic going on where people are losing their jobs and can't go to work and can't go out and can't travel, and, you know, kids are missing out on their last year of little league, their last year of high school, their last year to play sports. You know, I mean, it's literally like devastating for a lot of people based upon what time of life they're in. And then here we are, like, because we happen to be sitting on an online, you know, classic game, you know, website platform, if you will, that our traffic is just skyrocketing. Because I literally think over a course of a few weeks, people were like, okay, I'm stuck at home. What can I do with my time? And a few obvious answers came up. It was like, I'll learn a new language. I'll buy some exercise equipment. So literally, you can't buy dumbbells. Like we've been trying to buy dumbbells for months. You cannot find a dumbbell online. It's crazy. And then, or I'll learn how to play chess. You know, like this is when the classic games are kind of like making a comeback. It's weird. Like people are going back to playing Settlers of Catan and playing like old school games. Um, so I thought that, like, you know, once PUBG and Fortnite and all these games came out, that like kids these days would never discover the beauty of like old school board games. But it's kind of the opposite. Like people are actually going back and discovering kind of like the old classics. And so chess has gotten super big, and then chess.com had a fortunate opportunity to run some PogChamps events. So we've been taking all the top streamers off of Twitch and putting them into these big tournaments where they have like a grandmaster coach, and that has really pushed chess to the forefront of kind of esports and streaming. And so you see all these people that are not usually exposed to the game of chess, and they see kind of their celebrity Twitch streamers playing chess, and I think they love it because they can relate. It's like, whoa, this guy's actually human. You know, he might be amazing at Fortnite or amazing at League of Legends, but he's terrible at chess, and I can relate to that. You know, and so it's a very relatable experience. Where watching grandmasters play chess is totally unrelatable. They're literally thinking on a different level that you cannot comprehend. So all of a sudden, you know, I think it's brought chess down to kind of a more digestible level, and it's pushed chess just to the mainstream in a different way. So we've been scrambling to keep our servers up over the last few months, and it's been a fortunate ride for the company.
So yeah, that's amazing, and the I guess the juncture that is going to be prevalent in all these podcasts is the transition of quitting pro gaming and the years that follow, in which now that we see the aftermath, we're just like, okay, we'll be fine. Which I don't know. I think we always kind of knew would be okay. But there were some hard years and like hard decisions. And I think like you and Dennis Fong and other people who chased entrepreneurs like felt that earlier than I did in your 20s, probably mid 20s.
Yeah, I mean, don't give me too much credit. It took me 7 years to get my undergrad degree. That's a long time.
It took me
7
10,
years.
but I had breaks.
Yeah, 7 years was straight for me, like straight full load every semester for 7 years. And part of that was I went to BYU. I used to be Mormon. I'm going to admit it. I'm not anymore. But when you go to BYU, you take a lot of religion classes, and when you transfer out of BYU, all those other universities look at your study of the Book of Mormon, the Bible, and they're like, sorry, that doesn't apply to your degree. So I lost a ton of credits with all of my religious studies, and then I also switched from electrical engineering to business no, I was like MIS marketing or business or whatever at San Jose State, and toiled at that for a couple years, kind of wasted away. It was not for me, and then I finally changed to computer science. And once I changed to computer science, I was like in love, and I was actually getting good grades and all that. But there was a while there where I didn't know why I was going to college. It felt like a waste of time, and I spent my entire sophomore year gaming. Literally my entire sophomore year. I didn't go to any classes at all. I like got like yeah, like it was all gaming. And I think I got like a 1.3 GPA my sophomore year.
That's good. For gaming.
I was getting UWs, like unapproved withdrawals, which is literally like a 0. Like you paid for this class and you never showed up. So it was terrible.
Yeah, I never did that either.
Yeah. So it took me a long time to get that, but once I finally got on track and got my CS degree, and I was kind of like employable, and I was a decent developer, then Eric just kind of came to me and was like, hey, help me build this website. So just started doing that. We started hiring, and yeah.
Rest is history.
We got lucky there. It wasn't like I was entrepreneurial right out of the gate though. Like I always kind of wanted. Well, I mean, I was with WGF, but I felt like I just wanted to work for a company where it was like I get some benefits, I get a steady 9 to 5 job, and like a little bit of some stock options, and maybe they'll go public. Like that's kind of what everybody in Silicon Valley was doing. Like not everybody was going out and starting companies. Most people were just going to work for businesses, because if you worked for a tech company or an internet company at the time, it was so normal to get acquired or IPO within like a few years. Like it was the late 90s, early 2000s. It was just like everything was blowing up. So I'm like, well, I'll just hop on some coattails of some cool company, and I'll just ride the coattails. Like that just seemed easier to me. But it's actually a lot harder to pick a winning horse than you think. You hear all the stories of the YouTubes and the Facebooks and all that, but you don't hear the thousands of other companies that don't actually do that. And I happened to work for one of those. Like they got bought out, and I thought I had made it, and I literally got a check on my desk after working there for 4 years. And I opened up my check. At the time I was like senior engineering lead, team lead, had built like their flagship product, or at least helped to architect most of it. Opened up my check, 4 years, and I got $900. That was my big payout. And it was the biggest slap in the face ever. And literally that afternoon, the CEO's pulling us all into the lobby and literally toasting champagne with everybody, like uncorking bottles. We're all standing there looking at each other, because we all know, like, I know you got like $1,000. I know you got like $200. Like we all got shafted. The CEO just got paid millions of dollars, and he's slapping us in the face with a champagne toast. And I'm like, what is going on? We should be pissed off right now. And everybody's just drinking the Kool-Aid. And I'm like, this is stupid. So for the next year, I just was like, screw you guys. I'm not working on anything in this company. Like I was so angry. And so that's when I started working on chess.com. And I was like, I got to do my own thing. I never want to work for the man again, because I don't want to get the shaft like that. So
that's like a lesson early. And like I was under gamers.com with like Lyle and Thresh, Lyle Fong and then Dennis Fong. And like there was some naivete on the employees' end. There was some fast talk on their end, and really I think it's just a growing process that you have to go through. And like looking back, and Lyle's lamented some stuff in talks, but it's just like it's a wake-up call. Like you can't live in dreamland, like, oh, you just join the startup and then you're gonna just make it big. Like you need to have that wake-up call and just be like, okay, this is reality. I'm not happy, but how do I, regroup and
Yeah.
try to move on. One,
Yep.
one recap for your San Jose place. I won the Starcraft World Championship there, and you were witness. So
Yeah. Yep.
so
I
that
do
was
remember that.
one piece of history that we want to get out there in the air on air.
Yep.
So
No, I actually remember the bedroom that we were in where you used to sit over my right shoulder. I was in the left corner gaming, and you would like coach me. Even when I was playing in like the next one, and I went carrier rush or whatever, like that was like, you're like, what are you doing? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm rushing carriers, and like that was pretty much the end of it all for me.
Yeah.
Like it was just like I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah,
So,
but the thing is, like, you were going to school, you had like a company and stuff like, and this is something that like, pro gamers now, they just like play hard, maybe stream, compete. Like we were doing like a ton of things, and like, like I said, like just watching you work on things was like a really good influence on me, because like that was just an avenue that I never really, the Asian mentality doesn't really go for that like grinder, like hustling entrepreneurship, and that carried on with me for life, and especially watching like Silicon Valley just like take off, and us having these personal experiences with gaming and entrepreneurship, like that you can't get that education in college.
yeah. Well, I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad if I motivated anybody, then that's awesome because I don't feel like I did that, but
You 100% did, and like you always downplay like your gaming achievements, but like Matt Place, who's like a legend in Magic in the gaming industry, he remembers you. There's a lot of people like to just bring up, or just like I had a podcast with Ryan Fee, and he's like, hey, Starcraft, what race were you? And I'm like, Jay Severson and me, random. And they're like, sick, because it's like we're like really just like whatever, dude, let's just go.
Yeah. Yep. I honestly did random mostly because I felt like it was a huge strategic advantage. That's why I did it. Like if you have to force the other person to go out and scout you early just to even know like what to build, like that's just a huge advantage. So if you can play all three races pretty well to the point to where you can give them limited information to start the game, I think it's a huge advantage. So I just saw it as an advantage the whole time I did it. But yeah, I think too, talking about the entrepreneurship and all of that, like, I always felt like I wanted to build my own business. It doesn't always hit you really early on in terms of what you actually should build or what you need to build.
Right.
So it took several years, I think, for me to figure out, like every now and then you get a sense of inspiration of like, here's what I really want to build. And with chess.com, it was very different. When Eric came to me and said, we had already built one chess business together. Well, he had built most of it. It was an online e-commerce chess business. He had already had it up and running for at least a year or two, operationally selling chess equipment online, and he just wanted me to like overhaul his whole online e-commerce shopping cart basically. So I built a shopping cart system for him because back in those days there was no off-the-shelf shopping carts. So I built that, and so he kind of came to me years later when he was out here at Stanford getting his master's, and he just said, hey, let's do another chess business. We'll do chess.com, and we'll let people get an @chess.com email address, which will be super cool, and tons of people will want that. And I was like, back in those days, like your was really like a part of your identity.
Yeah.
Like not so much anymore. Everybody has @Gmail, @Hotmail, @AOL, whatever. But back in the day, you could have a very cool @whatever, and it was kind of like part of your identity. It was almost like how people wear T-shirts now that kind of brand themselves certain identities or tell people like this is what I'm into. And so I'm like, oh yeah, people really like that, and we'll do some forums and all this kind of stuff. And then he's like, well, let's go pitch it. And I said, Eric, I've thought about this. Like making money in the chess industry is so hard, like really hard. People that play chess, first off, don't have money. They're all poor, and
Sorry,
nobody,
no,
even the people that have money that play chess, don't want to spend money on chess because you can play chess for free online a million places. Like Yahoo Chess had been out for years, and Fix had been out, and ICS had been out. So I'm like, this is a non-monetizable business. So it just didn't seem like a good idea, and I told him no. And he lured me into going in and meeting with the people that own the domain. And we're sitting in this meeting. I remember we were like at a sushi restaurant in Palo Alto, like every Silicon Valley startup is, and basically said, like, turns the time to me. It's like, Jay, tell these guys why you're so excited to build chess.com. Like that was literally what he said to me. Like he wanted me to pitch and sell them on this idea. And I looked at him, big old eyes, and I was like, what are you talking about? I don't even want to do this. I'm just here to like learn about who these guys are. And it's like a meet and greet. And so I was like, oh man, we're gonna do great things with this domain, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that. It's gonna make a ton of money. And like, I just put on my sales hat and just started pitching. And
The rest is history.
well, kind of. We ended up getting all the assets kind of from a different. They ended up filing bankruptcy, and so we ended up acquiring the entire domain through a bankruptcy auction. And we did try to partner with them for a while, but they were in a lot of debt from the years that they had been trying to do stuff with the domain. So anyway, I like chess.com is not even a business that I wanted to build, and it wasn't even my idea. It ended up being my most successful startup ever. So it just kind of goes to show you that like it's not always about having like the light bulb moment of like what you want to build. Sometimes it's literally like they say, right place, right time, right person, right connection, and you just get really lucky. We happened to get a business that was sitting on the perfect domain name, so we SEO'd really, really well, and
Right.
Google loved us, and it just kept ramping in traffic. Um, so, other businesses that I built where I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. I really want to build that. I failed miserably. So we can go through a long list of startups that I have tried to do or hobby projects I have tried to do, and most of them are failures, which is the way it should be. But just you just never know like when like the right combination of things is going to come together for it to be like, yes, this is what I want to spend the next 2 to 5 years or 10 years of my life doing. That's for a successful startup. It's usually on average like 7 years minimum. So it's a big risk and a big chunk of your life.
Oh
And
yeah.
you just don't know. Like, just so people know, in 2011, I was also a co-founder at exercise.com in the middle of the chess.com days. We decided to also go off and start another startup. And we did it the typical Silicon Valley way. We raised a lot of money. We got an office in downtown Mountain View, right in the thick of all the other .com startups. And we thought we would take the chess.com model and do the same thing with a much bigger niche and bigger market. And it was hard. Like, we tried to do online content, we tried to do online videos, we tried to sell equipment, we tried to do just content, like all this stuff. And we ran out of money, and we had some successes along the way, but the business turned into something that none of us were really excited about and was hard to monetize. And so we did that for about 2 to 3 years, and eventually ended up selling off all the assets because we just weren't having any success. And I did Gambit.com as an early cryptocurrency betting site, where I still to this day it's like something that I love the idea of, but in reality, excuse me, in practice, it's much harder. Like, I wanted to build a skill gaming website where people could bet cryptocurrency, Bitcoin specifically, on classic skill-based games. So backgammon or Yahtzee or dominoes or all these games. Like, I think adults should be able to go online and wager, but in reality, people can cheat. There's computers out there that play those games perfectly. People can basically prey on the fish all the time and avoid playing other sharks. So and then there's the cheating aspect. There's the legal aspect in the United States, like what's legal, what's not legal when it comes to skill-based games. So there was just so much headache that eventually, after a couple years, I threw in the towel and was like, nope, we're just going to pivot and just have like social games just for fun. So a pivot is basically a failure. So there's been a lot of those where it's just like, I have an idea, I like the idea, but in reality the execution is either a lot harder or it's going to cost a lot more money than I think.
Oh yeah.
um, Building Gambit would have cost me probably $10 million to build it the right way, because after all the legal fees
Oh
and
man.
anti-cheat detection that I would have needed to make that business work, I was trying to build it for like a couple $100,000, but in reality, I think it's more like millions of dollars. So, there's just lots of things like that where I've tried and tried and tried and not been successful.
Yeah, but like these participations and these efforts to improve like get you to a point, would you say, that allow you to hit that success too? So I don't,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think, back to the gaming thing, I don't know about you, but I could mostly remember the games I lose. I don't
Right,
remember really the games I win. So
right, right.
uh so like same thing with like from the inside, our inside, we just see what we aren't doing, and then the outside world just sees like all the stuff that we do.
Yeah.
They see chess.com.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's cliche, but Miley Cyrus, it's all about the climb, man. Like, It really is. Like it's the journey and it's the process that you go through that really is molding you and you know, who you are. It's not really the result at the end of the day that kind of defines you. It's what you learned along those 2 years or along that journey that like makes you who you are and sets you up for having success at the next thing that you try at, you know? And so all those failures really do help me learn like, okay, what do I need to do better the next time I try something, and what do I need to avoid, and what did I do wrong, you know, the last time around? How can I improve on that? And so every time I start something new, I really do look back and be like, you know, what did I do wrong there? Let me try to fix that so that I'm just better suited up to have more success at the next one.
Yeah, it's just like, shout out to theoretical gaming. There's like always theoretical Starcraft where people say, "Oh, this beats this beats that," when it's just like, okay, let's just play. And just like same thing with, entrepreneurship, just like any operation. It's like you have ideas, guess what? They're not all gonna work. And then when they don't
Right.
work, you gotta like figure out like what does work, and then part of it's
Right.
just like the learning process. So like
And
I don't
that's
know.
that's that's
Yeah.
true too. Like people always like the NDAs are the most annoying thing, and that's why NDAs aren't even respected anymore. Is because people realize like the idea is not worth anything. Like it's just not. Like it's you have an idea. There's probably 20 other people in the world that have the same idea, if not more. So it's not like the idea is ever really super novel. It's all about the execution of that idea and how you actually go about operationally implementing your idea to kind of determine whether or not you're going to have success. So I can come up with 20 ideas, and I probably do, and my wife hates it. I'll wake up almost every morning and be like, I've got this new idea for this app I want to build. I've got this new idea for this business I want to build. She's like, can you please just finish like the 12 you're working on? And so I always have ideas, and I have to pick and choose like which ideas I want to work on. But the ideas are super cheap. It's always about the execution and finding the right people to build what it is you're trying to build. Like you just really need like the right players, and you have to have all stars at a startup. You can't have B players. You've got
Ooh,
to have
quoting Steve Jobs. Because
which
the
I'm almost
B,
done with his
yeah.
book right now. Actually, I'm in the middle of reading
Which
it.
one?
Just the one that's based on the movie, or the one the movie is based on. Just the one that's called Steve
Okay.
Jobs. Yeah.
B players discourage the A players. So
Yeah.
that's the
Yep.
line. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
so I
yeah.
think it's true though. Like when you build, if you look at most successful big companies, their early days they were filled with all stars, and you need those guys early on to build kind of a rock solid foundation. And obviously, as you get bigger, you can fill your company in with lower B level players, if you will, or less experienced or green or whatever you want to call it. But early on, you just really need all stars.
And throughout the decades, I would say probably since 1995, there's always been an ever evolving criteria and labeling for these like A players, or who, like, what qualities denote to these A players. And it used to be just like supposedly intelligence and like, some pedigree of like claiming things. And then as time progresses, we realize that, yeah, it's important, but may not be the most important thing, or there are other qualities that are possibly more important. It's like the ability to work well with other people, adaptability, not being too strong-headed on your own ways, which, sorry about that with in my case with you. But just like it's yeah, it's a really difficult and it's a difficult thing to quantify and be tangible,
Yeah,
and
it is.
you don't know until like it happens, or and it takes
Right.
time to just see, and everybody's gonna make mistakes with these things.
Well, yeah.
So
So I've done a lot of hiring in my days, a lot. I've probably interviewed and hired over 100 people easily, which maybe that's not a lot compared to other people. I don't know, but I feel like I've sat in a lot of interviews and hired a lot of people. Um, for somebody who's not in HR, I guess that's a lot of people to go through and sit through. But um, what I have found is that just coming to terms with the fact that your batting average when you're interviewing people is going to be extremely low. It's about as good as it is in baseball, right? So like a great batting average for interviewing is probably about 300. So you're gonna interview 10 candidates, and I would say 30% of the time when you say this person's great, they're actually great. So you get the wrong read most of the time because you just can't learn that much giving them a templated test. You can't learn that much by talking to somebody for an hour. You just can't learn that much until you actually get in the grind and go to battle with them, and you're working with them for hours every day and having to like ping them back and forth or send stuff their way. And when you start actually going in the trenches with somebody in the workplace, that's when you really learn whether or not somebody's an A player, and you just can't learn it in an interview process. So what I have learned more now is don't worry so much about interviewing somebody. It's more about quick hires and quick fires. So if I want one person for a particular job, I'll usually hire three with the intention of keeping one. And even when it comes to like building my apps these days, I literally will hire like three different companies and have them each like build a prototype or build three different apps with the idea that I'm going to keep one company at the end of the day to actually run with long term. Because I just know that like two of them are probably going to be terrible, and all three of them might actually be terrible, and I'll just keep the least terrible of the three. Um, but anyway, that's just more of my thought process now, is that finding A players, you've got to just scoop up a lot of people and hire a lot of people, and then you'll find out which ones are the really awesome all stars, and you just kind of let people go. And I just tell people up front, I say, look, we're going to work together for a few weeks and see how it goes, and it's kind of a temporary to permanent solution. That's just the way I look at hiring now.
Yeah, a couple other ones is just like cohesion, integrity is a big thing, just direction in life. Like all these things are just, and just like seeing people who they are on paper and achievements versus who they actually are. Like some of these
Yeah.
things can be so like different.
Yeah, I mean, if I start listing like attributes of people that I think are all stars, I think that it really depends on what I need them for in the company. Somebody who is going to be like a chief operating officer and basically be managing a bunch of people, to me, has a totally different skill set than trying to hire like your number one engineer who's basically going to be heads down writing code all day long. So there's not like a list of attributes that I would come up with that says if you have these, you're an all-star. It really depends on like,
Yeah.
well, what are you trying to do? Are you a developer? Are you like a CTO? Are you a COO? Are you, like what are you? And then I can try to figure out like, well, do you have the right qualities to try to, are you an all-star in that particular role? Um, but yeah, I think like for a developer, they don't necessarily have to have like the best people skills. Most engineers don't have great people skills. I'm an engineer, so I can say that. Um, but engineers have a really good ability to think analytically and also have an ability to fall in love with the product that they're building, right? Like if you
Yeah.
look at the Wozniaks and the Jobs and stuff like that, they actually were passionate about what it was that they were building. They were probably going to eat their own dog food, if you will. It's like engineers these days, a lot of engineers don't eat their own dog food, and they usually make up for the worst engineers because they're building something where they have no intention of ever using it and have no passion around what is that they're building. They just don't care. They're just doing it because they're getting paid. And so that's always a big thing. I'm hiring developers and I'm saying, well, have you guys actually played the app? Have you gotten together with your friends and actually used it? Well, no. And it's like, okay, well, you can't build a good app if you guys never use the app, And so just stressing to engineers, good engineers understand product, understand UI, understand UX, actually are a user of the app or the product they're building. And that's why, like for me, building chess.com was always so easy. It was natural because I'm a chess player. Like I want to play chess online. I want to do this online. I want to, like everything I was building was things that I actually wanted to do in the chess world online that did not exist. So it was very straightforward for me and Eric. Like we're both chess players and we're both mediocre chess players. So it was even better. Like we're like, 17,
Compared to
1800.
who?
Yeah. Compared to pro chess players, we're mediocre. Um, and so it was obvious, like what we're building tools for people like us that are trying to get better at chess, And so it just always came very natural. And every time I've tried to build things that I don't actually want or that I'm not actually going to use, it's usually not been successful because I don't really understand the user who's going to use my product.
That's huge, and also just yeah, passion, longevity of just like, I think one thing that you and I definitely have is no matter how burnt out, no matter how tilted, and no matter how much we're like, screw this, I quit. We go to sleep the next day, we're like, oh, we're back at it again.
Yep. Yep.
And that's actually the rare thing that actually I feel like came from, or at least I don't know if it came from, but really signified our gaming process. Like in Warcraft 2, unlike Starcraft, you can, especially in team games, you can come back from like one peon. but
Hmm.
even in one-on-one games, and having the
Yeah.
attitude to just like never give up until
Right.
you're literally dead.
Yep. Yep. And I do play, like, talking about games again. I mean, I went through a stretch where I wouldn't say I was trying to be pro or anything, but I was very competitive at Counter-Strike 1.6. I was very competitive at Counter-Strike Go, CS Source. I was very competitive at League of Legends, got to like diamond level League of Legends, like my gaming habits and my like competitiveness at gaming never went away, even though I stopped treating it as a like serious profession. It still like has lived with me to my wife's disappointment, for the for the
Lynn,
last like
forgive him.
yeah. I still play a lot of games. I still love to play. I still like, I mean, I just posted a clip yesterday of me getting, an ace, in Valorant, killing
Sick.
all 5 people. Like, it's just like, I still like have that competitive nature in me. Um, but even in first person shooters, it's the same thing. Like, it can be a 1v5 situation and you're thinking like, I can pull this off, like I'm not going to give up, like I've got literally I gotta send you the clip later. I had 30 health and I was fighting against 5 guys, so I was almost dead. And I'm like, I can pull this off, and I did pull it off, man. I pulled off the ace with 30 health. It was amazing. It was like it's awesome. I love when I do that stuff. So you're right. It's kind of that like never die, never give up attitude. It probably does come a lot from our competitive gaming nature. So
You just see it in some, and honest, like, you, Super Peon, and maybe a couple others I can't think of on the top, like attitude. Like, even if we're just playing in the same team, I could see through the screen and see your attitude that you're just like not gonna freaking give up. And that's just like where I guess the respect comes from. And just like when you do well, even though you feel like you were definitely a top player for Starcraft, even though you may not feel like you were the best at that time, dude, you're the one who did it, and you're actually the one who taught me that kind of sentiment. You're the one who did it, and like, there's like, dude, your attitude is what brings you through. Not being too arrogant, not being too big on yourself, and the shows with the chess.com, IGL.net. We're gonna talk about Nutty Poker in a bit, but like, yeah, just like when like you, Dennis, Fong, and stuff just like start killing it, I'm just not surprised at all. And I know from your point of view and your home point of view, it's like grinding and stuff, and just like when Lynn's just like, oh, why don't you finish this idea? Like, those are the things from the outside, guy first guy. I'm just like, damn, love this guy, dude. He's sick. But it's true because
I
like,
appreciate it, man.
yeah, I mean, I name drop you all the time, just like, period. And it's like my personal relations with you, and say Dennis Fong, Brian Weissman, that's more important to me than all the stuff you killed out there. I'm like, yeah, I know that guy, because when the chips are down and out, no matter how pissed off or frustrated he is, tomorrow he's waking up and he's going at it.
Yep. I try. I mean, it's definitely days where it's hard to get out of bed, but yes, there are also days where I wake up at like 5 in the morning because I have an idea and I cannot go back to sleep because I want to like get up and start working on like formulating my ideas and writing stuff down. And like, yeah, that happens all the time. And I think it's weird, and don't picture this, but I always have my best breakthrough ideas in the shower. It's like always, I'm always in the shower, and then it's like, because there's nothing else to focus on, maybe I'm always thinking about stuff, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Yes, I'll do that. Like, it's maybe just writing a line of code back in the day, or maybe it's a product feature for my latest apps or whatever, but it's always like in the shower I have my biggest epiphanies. Sometimes when I'm dreaming, we're at the point where I wake up and I'm like, I need to write that down before I forget in the morning. But yeah, speaking of which, never giving up. I mean, you want to talk about Nutty Party at all?
Yeah, let's do it. Nutty Party. You just had the Party Mafia portion launched, but let's go through the history how you even got to that point.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking about like eating your own dog food again, it was totally the case with Nutty Party. Um, I was at a mancation, whatever you want to call it, a getaway with a bunch of guys down in Palm Springs, and we're playing all the classics. We're playing Mafia, we're playing Avalon, we're playing Quiplash, and all the Jackbox games, just hanging out, having a good time, swimming at the pool. And we had driven a big Sprinter van down to Palm Springs, like 9 guys. And so we're headed back after our get together, and I was just really missing the fact. I'm like, man, we can't play Decrypto in the car. We can't play this in the car, and like it kind of bugged me that we needed to have all these like box sets, or we needed cards, or we needed the stuff. And excuse me, I was thinking like, why don't we have a way where we can play anywhere we are, like anytime, like in the hot tub, on a car ride, at Disneyland, Like we should just be able to like pop out our phones and play like all these cool like party, social deduction type games. And so I'm like, oh, there must be things, already in the App Store for this. And I started looking around, and there's like Ellen's Heads Up game, which is the closest you kind of get. But even that game, it's a huge success. Like you look at the revenue that they've generated with Heads Up. Obviously, Ellen's pushing it all the time, but I mean, it's a lot of money. It's like $1 million per month in revenue, which is pretty good for literally an app that probably would cost you like $30,000 to build. Um, but anyways, it's the only party games I could find on the store were the type where one person downloads it, has all the information, and then they kind of pass their phone around to all of their friends and say like, okay, here's your role, look at the phone, or it's your turn, here, take my phone. And I mean, now we're in a post-COVID world where nobody would ever do that anymore, hand their phone around to a bunch of people. But even back when that was okay, it was still weird. Like I don't want to be at a bar or at a party or anywhere and be like, here, bro, take my phone. And here, take my phone. Like I don't want people's hands all over my phone. What if I get a call? What if I get a message? Like I don't, I want my phone on me. It's like part of me now. Like we're half cyborg at this point in 2020. So it made more sense to me. Like we should all be able to just bust open our phone, plug in a game code. We could all be connected within a few minutes, and we could all be gaming with each other, like anywhere at the bar, having drinks. It would just be cool, right? Um, and so that's kind of where the inspiration came from. And I like Jackbox games, which is, focuses specifically on party games. The problem with Jackbox TV is that you have to be in front of a big TV to play their games, or you have to be in front of a computer, like a big screen or something. Like there has to be some medium where all the people can gather around and play it. And if you're on a road trip or at Disneyland or at a bar or whatever, you just can't play Jackbox games. It's impossible. And so I wanted something that was much more mobile, more portable, and just lived entirely on the mobile device. And so that's kind of where the inspiration came from. And so I started looking at like, well, what's the most popular party games that I would want to play? And like Taboo came to mind as old classic favorite. And then like I really like the idea of like Cards Against Humanity and those types of games. So Wisecrack kind of came to mind as like that's the game that I built where it's just kind of funny questions and answers. But really my all-time favorite ever since I was in college was Mafia. Like I love Mafia, and we played that in BYU my freshman year, and I've been in love with it ever since. And it's super intense. It's not for everybody. As you learned in our last game, you got angry. Like people have lost friendships over this game. I think people have actually gotten divorced over this game. Like it's a very intense, not for the faint of heart. You're getting backstabbed all the time. You're getting called a liar. Like all this stuff. I mean, people will bring out their worst side. And the best part about this game for me is like, I'll make eye contact with like an old friend like Eric or something across the circle when in a game of Mafia, and he'll like give me like this wink, like, hey, I'm a good guy and I know you are too. And all of a sudden we're like playing like this tandem game where we're trying to figure out who the Mafia are. Me and Eric are just like knocking them down, having a good old time. And then all of a sudden it comes down to the end of it, and I get killed, and I find out the mother freaker was Mafia, and he used me the whole time. Like he literally pulled me in with like this old bond that we had, gave me that little smile, like gave me that connective wink, and then just stuck the dagger in my back. It's like, you're so angry, but then after the game is over, you're like, oh my God, that was so intense. And I love the fact that he was able to betray me like to my face like that, like so dirty. So I love Mafia. And so I was like, why do we not have a better app to play this game on? We're still playing with poker cards. Like it's 2019 and we're literally taking out a deck of poker cards, passing them around and being like, hey guys, the ace means you're a Mafia. The queen means you're, I'm like, this is so old school. And so, started building Party Mafia as an app, and it just made it better.
I think the last Party Mafia groups you had me participate in, they're all competitive gamers, so we definitely are not gonna have any bad blood.
Right.
Me getting emotional is just like, it's just, that was really frustrating because like I knew I was right, and everyone, like if you know you're right and everyone else is wrong, it's like, what the hell do you do? Because you can't like de-escalate. You can't be like, calm down, I'm right, you're all wrong. Like, that doesn't work, you know?
You can't do that. You can't. And the funny part about it was like I was doing the same thing to you that Eric did to me. Like I was Mafia, and I was intentionally framing you to make you look bad, and I even killed a person in the night that everybody would then think like Wayne did it. And I could see your frustration boiling, and that's the part of the game that I live for and that I love. Is like, I'll go out of my way to make a bad play if I know that it will bring some extra drama to the game. like I do it all the time. Like I did it to Danny Wrench, faceofchess.com, where he had gotten me in one game really good, and I purposely in the very last round tried to come out as detective and like frame him as a bad guy just so I could see the reaction and how angry he would get trying to claim his innocence. And I love that stuff. And so what I'm trying to do now with my games is really just first make the product really really good. That's my number one focus, is make sure that the app and the product is like an A+ experience for users that download and use the app. We're not quite there yet. I think the apps are great, but they're not as good as they could be.
Yeah,
So I'm still working on kind of perfecting the
they're
apps a little
getting
bit.
there. They're
They're
getting
getting
there. I
there.
guess. Yeah.
I think we have a couple releases coming up over the next few weeks where you're going to see a huge improvement in the UI, and it's going to really feel like super cool now when you play the game.
Awesome.
Like it's going to be big, cool avatars, and you can really like click who you want to kill, and it's just the interface is going to feel more alive. Right now, it feels kind of engineered a little bit, very text heavy, kind of old school. So anyway, we're going to beautify the app, if you will. Um, and my next steps after that, we're coming out with another game called Mafia Moles, which I just play tested this morning, and it was freaking awesome. It's super cool. It's just like Mafia, except nobody ever dies. So that's kind of a fun version, since it's based loosely on the very popular game Avalon. But basically, you play Mafia, and the idea is that you go on these operations, these sting operations. It's FBI versus the Mafia, and every sting operation you go on, you have to nominate certain players to go on that operation. And if the Mafia happen to infiltrate that operation, they'll sabotage it. So if an operation gets sabotaged enough times, and the Mafia win, so you're trying to figure out, oh, this operation got sabotaged, and Wayne was on that operation. Wayne must be Mafia, and you're like, no, I didn't sabotage it. Like Danny sabotaged it, and so it's an information gathering, but nobody ever dies type of Mafia, and it's super fun. So that's coming out soon, but I really want to get it to the point to where Party Mafia is a regular game played on Twitch and streamed all the time, because viewers love to watch it. They love to play
Oh yeah.
along. They love to try to guess who the Mafia is. You can even throw up surveys on Twitch and be like, who do you think is Mafia? And having a ton of fun. I actually played a game of Mafia with some an Indian group of Mafia players called Mafia Originals. And they play old school with like Excel spreadsheets and like all this stuff. And so I'm trying to like get Mafia introduced to India through this, Mafia Originals group. And I just think it's a great game. Socially, people have a ton of fun with it. It's very strategic. So yeah. Anyway, big
So
fan.
yeah, I want to have put in some good comments, because I don't play Mafia that often. Just like you mentioned, when you're younger and there's a little betrayal among friends, it stings, and some people, it's definitely not for everybody. But I definitely admire a lot of the moves that you did, and you had a little more experience than me in recent times. But just I have questions like strategically, and it's hard to quantify. Like in the game, I said Jen Shahadi was innocent, and then another one I was like Daniel Wrench is innocent, and I have like some live poker history,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some things I can quantify, there's some things I can't quantify, but I'm just emotionally defending them, and the rest of the people are like, why are you defending him so hard? I'm like, because like I don't even know how to quantify to the rest of the people like why I have
Right.
these reads, and then it turns
Right.
out I was correct, and then of course I'm innocent. Like I don't even like how one am I supposed to like try to adapt to that? Two, like the other people, how do they feel after like I'm protesting this so much, and then they killing us and killing us? It's like
Mm-hmm. So there's a bunch of things to read into that, because there's only two people that will ever say I'm 100% certain so and so is so and so, right? So if you come out and you say I know Jen is good, and you say 100% I think Jen is good, it either means you're Mafia, because now you know who the other Mafia members are, so you know she's good. And that's a very common Mafia strategy to gain allegiances and alliances with certain people, is they'll come out and they know who all the bad guys are, right? And people have done this to me before. And if you're a citizen and all of a sudden you got Tom over here who says, I could tell Jay's good this game. He's really good. Well, now it makes you feel good. You're like, oh yeah, he's right. I am good, and he's reading me. So now all of a sudden Tom becomes your friend, and you start
yeah,
to defend Tom, but Tom is actually Mafia and he's playing you,
yeah,
right? And so you have to be careful about that, because it's a very common Mafia technique to garner alliances with other people who are actual citizens. That's one thing. The other thing is you're a detective, right? So if you're a detective, you also could know that they're good because you asked about them during the night. But a detective never really comes out and says anything with absolute certainty because they don't want to die. So you're trying to hide yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and then the third is, either you're mafia or you're detective. The third way is you just have like a really good feeling about somebody. So it's like a 90%, I'm pretty certain this person's good, but I'm not 100%. I think that's always okay because you can justify it and say, look, a normal mafia member wouldn't have saved that player from the chopping block, or they wouldn't have uh, asked all these questions about why somebody did something, because you could tell sometimes when a citizen is really digging deep to try to gain information about something. Mafia members don't do that as often because they already have all the information,
Mm.
right? Mafia members have the perfect information in the game. They know who all the good people are and who all the bad people are. So when somebody's prying really deeply and asking a lot of prying questions, usually they're not mafia because they're trying to win the game and they're trying really hard,
Pro
right?
tip.
That's why they're asking all the questions.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can just look at people and be like, there's no way that person's mafia because they're playing so what's called civvy. They're playing so much like a citizen, um, or civilian, So there's just a lot of reads you can get. So if you come out and you say, I know Jen's good and I know Danny's good, people are going to think one of two things. They're either going to think you're mafia and that's why you're saying that,
Yeah.
or you're detective and you've asked about those two. But if you can't give any reason other than you're mafia or you're detective,
Oh,
then
I
people are
feel. Yeah.
like, feeling is only 90% at best, right? So you have to come up with something that says, well, the reason I think Danny's good is because he did this, this particular round or whatever. So you have to come up with concrete reasons for your feelings.
While
Um,
I get that, and I totally agree with you. You do like, this is meta. Like, we're talking about mafia outside the game, mafia. I don't know Jen Shahadi or Daniel Lynch very well, but I had significant feel intuitive evidence, and it turned out to be right. But it's not like how am I supposed to share my studies as a poker player or my feel for basic human behavior? Like what they were accusing Jen Shahadi of was a valid piece of evidence, but it was nowhere, and it was proof because they were wrong. Everybody else was wrong. It was nowhere
yeah,
near. And when they were both on the chopping block, I'm just screaming to
right.
it's not them, and I can't even prove it.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to
Well,
transfer
you
what's in
you
here
you
over
also
there?
have to remember that a lot of the noise that you're hearing during the town hall is mafia members, right?
Mm.
So you're trying to convince and reason with people who
People
don't
who
want to
want
be
to kill.
reasoned with. They're
Right,
they're
right.
purposely trying to make the conversation muddled and messy,
That's fair.
right?
Yeah.
And they're when they see you getting frustrated, they're winning, right? And they're like, well, as long as we can keep agitating and making arguments that don't really make a lot of sense, it's going to make Wayne even more upset, which is going to make him either look, guilty or whatever. So, you know,
But
there's
they weren't even killing me. They were killing
no,
Danny
I know, I
and Jen.
understand, but I'm just saying you're trying to use logical
Protect.
arguments with people, and then you
Yeah.
have other people who are like, no, we don't want to use logic. Like we're
Right.
trying
You're
to
right. Yeah.
purposely use illogical reasoning here to confuse everybody in the group. So the best thing when you're mafia is when you see a citizen go after another citizen.
Oh yeah. Then you're just piling on.
Then you're just like, okay, they're doing my dirty work for me, and all
Yeah.
I got to do is just like, oh yeah, I totally agree with you. I agree, she's totally guilty. You don't have to be the bad guy. Somebody else is being the bad guy for you. You can just kind of sit back and let other people do the dirty work for you.
Right.
There's so much strategy in that game. And the thing is like, once I tell you, for example, that usually only citizens ask a ton of questions and really try that hard, and mafia don't.
Pro
Now
tip.
that becomes part of your meta.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, next time you play mafia, you're going to be more vocal to try to seem like you're a citizen. But
Yeah.
then I'm going to think like, wait, I just told Wayne though to be more vocal when he's. So then I'm thinking Wayne's guilty this time because he's trying to do the opposite of what we just talked about last time. So there's always, you're kind of looking like one step ahead every time you play mafia.
At this juncture of mid-September 2020, Jay's got a little bit more experience. I have some experience now with, pretty very competitive gamers. I plan to continue this party mafia journey, and so this is going to be a lot of meta improving. And that thing just it really bothered me that I just was not I was so emotionally agitated defending
Yes.
somebody innocent.
Yes. And that's why the game is so great, Wayne,
Yeah.
because there are few games that I have ever played where I get as emotionally amped up and invested as when I play Mafia. Like poker, if I have a bad beat, it's like a short-lived, like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened, and then I'm over it. Like, it's, you don't feel like a personal betrayal. You don't feel like another human being has used and abused you. It's literally just the cards. The RNG kind of screwed you over. There's nothing you can do about it, right? But with poker, there's a different level of emotional investment and trying to read people and connect with people, and it's what we do all day every day anyways. Is like, part of life is reading other people and reading their reactions and trying to figure out when people are being sincere or not sincere. And so it's kind of like life boiled down into a game. And so there's just, and we've played the most vanilla version of Mafia, but you start adding all these expansion rules into it and it just takes the game to a whole nother level. So it's like, you've played Mafia like right here, and it's like there's Mafia like that just keeps going up and up, and the game just gets crazier and crazier. And so my goal really with Party Mafia is to bring a platform to the masses where people can start to play Mafia with the same interface, the same rule set, the same understanding and ideas, so we can all start talking about the same thing. Because right now Mafia is played so many different ways over so many different like mediums and cards and different rules and garage rules and house rules and all that stuff. And it's great. Like, Mafia in all forms is fantastic, but it makes it harder for you to then just jump in a game and play with people because there isn't like a standard. And so I'm trying to just kind of standardize the game a little bit and give people a platform where in COVID times you can still hop on a Zoom call and just get a game going in a few minutes. Like, just makes it super easy. So that's kind of my goal.
All right, that's a lot to do in one lifetime, and hopefully you have a lot of decades to come. And don't be so low on your achievements. Like, a lot of people would be really glad to have a fraction of what you have.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, we'll let you guys know when there's gonna be other Party Mafia events, and you can join in the streams. What's the channel that it's gonna be mainly streamed on?
Yeah, so let me give people a few shout outs to where they need to go if they want to get the app or follow. So if you want to download any of my apps, it's nuttyparty.com. nuttyparty.com. From there, you can find all 5 of the apps that I've already built and launched, one of which is Party Mafia. If you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram or on Twitter or anything. You basically just look up Nutty Party Games. You can also look up Party Mafia. And then on Twitch, if you want to follow any of the live streams that are coming up for Party Mafia Live, just go to twitch.tv/nuttypartygames. That's our main channel where we do all of our live broadcasts. So.
And if you're living under a rock and you like chess, just go to chess.com.
Yeah, that's an easy domain to remember.
All right, thank you for your time. When you have cool ass updates, we're gonna try to get you back so we can let the audience know what's been going on.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
You too. d23-gad Severson, Starcraft world champion. Hey, throw up your trophy.
Oh yeah. I got this still sitting here. I showed the mouse earlier, but mine's not as cool as Wayne's. The faceplate fell off, and it's way dustier. But
you have the gold though. That's the gold. This is
the
silver.
Right.
The silver is second place.
Yeah. That's my trophy.
I
got my billboard check up there too, but it's too hard to get down.
I know of it. It's like a massive thing. We'll get a picture of that. Actually, you can see the picture of it on my Pinterest and some other stuff. But,
nice.
But Jay Severson, guys, leave a thumbs up, subscribe.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Party Mafia, nuttyparty.com. Late.